Auburn's list of visitors this weekend, it might be the best in all of college football.
You are Locked On Auburn, your daily podcast on the Auburn Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yes, welcome on into Locked On Auburn, your daily Auburn Tigers podcast. I'm your host, Zac Blackerby, and thank you so much for making Locked On Auburn your first listen every single day. It's Recruiting Thursday with Brian Smith, Locked On recruiting expert. We're going to talk about some of the guys that are committed elsewhere but are visiting Auburn this weekend, as well as some elite running backs and just the overall top guys to watch. But Brian, when you look at this list of players that are expected to be on Auburn's campus for Junior Day this weekend, you can compare it to the rest of the country when it comes to Junior Days going on throughout the SEC, the Big Ten, all of college football. You can't put together a list much better than the folks at Auburn are expecting in just a few days.
I was shocked at how many kids are getting on campus in one weekend. I'm not really sure how they pulled it off, but tip of the cap, first off.
Sure.
But it's both sides of the ball, big guys, small guys, linebacker. It doesn't matter what it is. They got somebody coming that's a national top 100, 150 kid, pretty much every position. So I'm like, Auburn is all in on this class. Right now, the way they're pushing, it has a chance to compete for top spot in the country. So
yeah.
Congrats to them.
That 2026 class ranked around the top 5, maybe a little higher depending on where you look. But Emmanuel Iheanacho and Zion Elee. Iheanacho, the 5-star offensive tackle from Baltimore. Zion Elee, the 5-star edge from Baltimore, different schools, same area, obviously. But those are the lone 2 5-stars, at least according to On3 here this weekend. But the Iheanacho one is obviously huge, but this does seem like a not as deep offensive tackle class, at least throughout the Southeast, which, 5-star tackles are always huge, but they might be even more impactful when you look at this class.
Yeah, if there's fewer of them, it's supply and demand. And I've seen Emmanuel play. Like, that is not a normal human being. He was 352 and still light on his feet.
6'6", 350, can move. Yeah. Yeah. Anybody in the world will take that for sure.
He has an offer from everybody. Oregon, Penn State, Ohio State, Michigan, Notre Dame. Everybody's offered him. Getting him on campus this weekend, it was pretty interesting because I'm sure he had an offer from everybody to come to everybody's having a Junior Day this weekend, like everybody.
Yeah. So, a few people had him last weekend, it looks like, but this weekend seems to be pretty popular.
This is the big one. So I'm really curious why he picked Auburn. He'd mentioned him to me when I interviewed him a few weeks ago, but I didn't know where he stood with them. So that could be a trend to watch. Of all positions that you and I are like always iffy about with Auburn, it's offensive tackle.
Yeah, and they've definitely gotten better at it over the last few classes. And they just kind of need time for, Favor Edwin to develop. And they've got a few guys, Broderick Schultz, a guy I'm super, super high on from this last year's class. But the last few weekends, on the 10th, went to A&M. Last weekend, it looks like he went to Florida, according to On3. And then this weekend, he's expected to go be here at Auburn. But counting this visit, this will be his second visit to Auburn. He's visited Florida twice. He's visited Bama twice. He's visited Penn State 3 times. Tracking the visits, it seems like the SEC is important to him, or at least something that he's listening to. And then Penn State, I don't know if it was you and I that talked about this before, but like Penn State's done a good job of recruiting that area pretty consistently. And so you got to think they're going to be in on it.
Yeah, Penn State, Maryland is their next stop, like the Baltimore, DC corridor. It's an hour apart or whatever. They've done great there. And it's one of the reasons they were in the Final Four. They're getting a lot of kids out of that area. He is a prime target. That's probably the school that I would keep an eye on the most if it's not Maryland. Maryland, I've got Elee to commit. The other kid we're going to talk about. So they're spending some NIL too, but Penn State does a great job in Maryland.
Yeah, so you bring up Zion Elee, and obviously he's very good. You talk about, I think we talked about him last week, where it's like you look at that guy and it's like, yeah, that guy's good at football. He'd probably be good in any sport that he played. He just happened to choose football, just physically gifted, 6'3", 220. But you look at him, 5-star edge from Baltimore. You look at Trenton Henderson, who's expected to be here, edge from Pensacola. You look at Hezekiah Harris, who's already committed, in-state guy, committed to Auburn. You talk about Tank, who's the number one player in the state of Alabama. This edge class is crazy. I talked about it a few days ago. Like, there's a real possibility that Hezekiah Harris is the third ranked edge in Auburn's class when this is all said and done, which is objectively absurd.
Yeah, if you got him and you added Tank or but there's 2 or 3 kids in Georgia too. So just depends on how you want to rank them. Yeah, I mean, and just about anybody else, Hezekiah would be the number one guy they would get. And I'm sure people are still going to try to flip him from Auburn and all that, but he seems pretty
solid.
Yeah, that's what I
pretty into Auburn.
The times that I've spoken to him, he just really liked Auburn. They just did a good job of recruiting him, and the other school within the state did not. And that was that. So I'm not really sure how you would be disappointed with it, and it would be one of the best edge classes I've ever seen. If they could get just him and Tank, they'd be set. But there's a chance that 2 or 3 other guys, international recruits too. I mean, as they say, load up when you can. Why not?
Yeah. I mean, we've talked about this with the portal. Is like, okay, are they going to add another edge guy? And thankfully they did. When you talk about Chris Murray from Sam Houston State, I really like him, by the way, but you can't have too many edge guys. It's impossible. I promise DJ Durkin will find ways to use them. It could be, you've got 2 guys on the field more often in pass rushing situations. It could be a situation where you scoot Keldrick Falk inside more than you might and you just choose to go small at defensive end in a few pass rushing situations. Like, there are ways to get edge and talented pass rushers on the field. You can't have too many of them.
No, not really. And that's why you look at the NFL draft. There's 1 or 2 edges that are going to be considered for top 5 picks pretty much every year. And sometimes multiple will go in the top 5. I'm curious to see what Auburn does at D tackle too. After I go up to Under Armour Atlanta in a few weeks, I'll have a better idea on them. That's the only other thing that I'm curious about, because like Auburn's already so far ahead at edge. I don't know which ones they're going to get, but it's going to be one of the better classes in the country. I've had too many kids visit.
One of my favorite guys in this class, and he has been for the last several months, is Bodney Cleveland from Parker. I know you've seen him as well. He committed to Alabama for like 5 minutes, and a lot of the folks I talk to think that it is going to be Auburn when it's all said and done. But Bodney Cleveland, I mean, you talk about that interior D line, like Bodney Cleveland, big guys who can move and control their frame. Bodney Cleveland is up there.
Cleveland is also important because it's strategic. Auburn in the last 15 years got its clock cleaned by Alabama in that area more often than not. And it's 50 minutes from Tuscaloosa. It's a rough sell. I get it. But they have to get more of those kids. That would be a great start. Now, they need to get 2 or 3 a year, but you got to start somewhere. And he's one of the most well-known kids in the area. If Auburn could flip, any of the top kids, but Cleveland or anybody else, that sets you up for later in the summer for Big Cat Weekend, etc. Yeah, that's the key. They need somebody early, though. Why not him? He's been to campus multiple times.
No kidding. Yeah, he certainly seems interested, and I think Auburn's got a good shot with him. We'll see. So earlier today, I texted you, and I said, which of all of these names stands out to you the most? And you said a guy that I have not talked about when talking about Junior Day. So let's jump into him and why he could be so special next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Talkspace. Therapy is a game changer. It can help manage stress, improve sleep, and communicate more effectively. But finding the right therapist and fitting sessions into a busy schedule can be a challenge. That's where Talkspace comes in. Talkspace is the leading virtual therapy provider, making getting the help you need easy, accessible, and affordable. With Talkspace, you sign up. It's very simple, and you get matched with a licensed therapist who fits your needs. It usually takes about 48 hours or so. And then once you're matched, you can message your therapist directly and, of course, schedule things all from the comfort of your own home. As a listener of this podcast, you can get $80 off your first month with Talkspace when you go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and enter the promo code SPACE80, SPACE80. To match with a licensed therapist today, go to Talkspace.com/LockedOnCollege and get $80 off using SPACE80 as the promo code. It's a Recruiting Thursday. Recruiting expert Brian Smith hanging out with us earlier today. I sent you the list. I'm like, man, look how loaded this class is. And you said, wow, Absolutely. And I'm like, give me a name that just stands out to you. And we've talked about several already. Your response, I'll let you say it when I asked you this question.
Well, I thought there were a lot of different kids, but one that kind of surprised me was Travis Burgess, the kid that's coming in from Grayson. I didn't even think about quarterback because they just got Deuce, but he has multiple reasons for being a really important player. Number one, you got to get a quarterback in every class if possible, but he's from Grayson and they're recruiting multiple kids from there. And that's a program that Auburn has to recruit every single year. So I was very excited about him being on the list because I hadn't even watched him. I went and watched his film, and there aren't many kids that are 6'4", 6'5", over 200 pounds with his mechanics and his arm strength. Like on the run, from the pocket, whatever, he fits the bill. So that one was pretty cool.
He also could be a guy that, like, he's not ranked on 3 yet. He's a 3-star at 247. Like, his stats are everything that you would want to see. And the measurables, 6'5", 180, 190, depending on where you look. Like, he looks the part. Now, obviously, as a quarterback, you've got to take that next step between your junior year and your senior year, of course. But I was a little surprised how not ranked this guy is. Because it's not that he's ranked low. In most places, like, he's just not ranked, which I thought was interesting because he plays at Grayson.
I have no idea what it is. Maybe he hasn't competed at many of the camps in the last year. That's all I can figure.
That's a big part of this, as we all know.
Yeah, I don't remember him at Elite 11 last year in Georgia, so maybe that's it. But you got to kind of wait your turn to play at Grayson. So last year was probably the first year he really had film too. So
sure,
if he does well, like Under Armour and some of these other events, you'll see him. But again, the size is there. He's listed at 185. He looks over 200 pounds to me, but whatever. I would gladly.
Yeah, he's exactly what you want. As like that big physical quarterback. Yeah.
Yeah, he has all those physical tools. So again, Grayson High School in the state of Georgia is a top 5 program. Yeah. It's a school that's had kids forever. And I would imagine that Auburn is there's probably a half dozen kids at that school they would take, over the next 2 classes. It's
how much of this is, okay, hey, you might be a riser, Travis Burgess, you might be a riser in the ranks, but also how much of this do you think, if you had to guess, is that he does play at Grayson and he's got relationships with a lot of these guys?
I think it's both. Quarterback is weird because every quarterback coach has his own opinion on it. And if the QB coach doesn't like a kid, the ranking, they don't care about that stuff anyway. But that's part. And then like everybody else on the staff is going to want the kid because it helps them with the other guys they recruit. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
I don't even know how many kids that Grayson has, so I'm not going to try to start naming all guys, but it's always a lot. You got a couple of kids that are national top 50 guys just on defense. Right. You have to recruit that school. So if you're going to get a quarterback to come behind Deuce, why not that one?
Yeah. Travis Burgess. I mean, how much do you think it possibly plays into the fact of like, okay, they're paying Jackson Arnold a lot of money. We assume they're paying Deuce Knight a lot of money. I mean, we've talked about this before. Like you want a quarterback in every class, and ideally you want as many top guys at every position as you possibly can get. But I mean, let's don't kid ourselves here. Like the landscape of everything in college football has dramatically shifted over the last few years. Is this one where it's like, okay, Travis Burgess, he wants to come here. He can help us. He can help fill out the quarterback room. And we'll see if he actually ever like competes for playing time. That's kind of what this feels like to me.
Well, especially because of what you mentioned a minute ago, like he's not ranked by some of them, and I'm a little perplexed by it. I like this film personally. Okay. I was expecting to see very mediocre performance. What I didn't see the rank, I'm like, okay, maybe he's an athlete guy, but he's a quarterback. Okay. He can run, but he's a quarterback. Like he'll run power and draw and stuff like that, and he's good at it. He's got a gun. And he's got the size you're looking for. So I can't believe schools like NC State and Vanderbilt and Kentucky, like all those schools should be all over him. I'm not saying Georgia's lining up for him just yet, but then again, Georgia, their quarterback room is kind of weird. Maybe they should be. So
who knows?
Yeah, Georgia's a weird program right now. I'm not sure why he's not ranked higher. And I would imagine that's going to change sooner than later.
Yeah. Another guy that you mentioned was Jay Lamar, who is a guy that I have not talked about a ton. Running back from Colquitt County, another Georgia kid, a top 15 ranked running back. in this class, but he's expected to be here this weekend.
That is an animal right there. He's one of my top 2 or 3 running backs nationally. I don't care which state he's from. Okay. He is the definition of the 1988 SEC running back.
Okay.
Got the eye, breaks tackles, just loves to hit people, and he finds a way to get through 2 and 3 guys. Like, he has a knack for getting out of arm tackles, and he's over 200 pounds already. So he's physically ready for SEC play compared to most other kids. Not that anybody's really ready for SEC play, but he's a guy that's going to play early. Georgia, Auburn are 2 schools to watch. I know that's not exactly shocking for a South Central Georgia kid,
right?
But he fits the bill, and he'll have an offer from every school in the country if he hasn't already. National top 50 kid, in my opinion, conservatively. I love him. And he's one of 3 or 4 elite running backs coming in this weekend. Auburn's not messing around there either.
Yeah, the running back I've talked about the most is Derek Cooper. And you and I texted about Derek Cooper a little bit as well. Teammate with wide receiver commit, Denarius Gray. They both go to Chaminade down in Florida. In your mind, is he the best of the running backs that are coming this weekend? But also, like, is Auburn in a great spot to get Derek Cooper? Like, I don't know. There are aspects to this.
Well, the thing with Coop is he's South Florida kid. Miami's after him hard. He's a Georgia fan. He's visiting a lot of schools. And I don't think he's the kind of guy that's going to decide right away. So I think the timing of it's more important.
Okay.
The way Auburn is recruiting, I'd imagine, I mean, they could completely knock him away out of the park this weekend. Who knows?
Sure.
But he might not want to decide before Auburn's got somebody else in the boat. So are they going to take 2 is the first question. What do you think? They're going to take 1 or 2?
My gut is no. I mean, it sounds like they're about to take 2 in this class. If Omar Mabson from Auburn High signs with the Tigers on signing day, which feels ridiculous to say, but with that coming up. And so then, like, the only back you're for sure losing after this year is Damari. And so Cobb could come back, Darrell Robinson could come back, Alvin could come back, Omar could come back. I don't think you need 2 in this class.
Well, it's interesting, and I know you don't follow recruiting like I do, but E.J. Kroll has reclassed to 26.
Okay.
He was going to be the top player in Alabama in 27. He just announced it. He's going to be on campus this weekend too, and he's a kid from the Mobile area. I mean, he's a national top. He might be a 5-star if he'd have stayed in his class.
Okay.
So that's 3 guys that can go to any school in the country just at running back that will be on the plains this weekend.
Yeah.
So
is he a Bama lean?
I don't know. I've seen Bama mentioned that way with on 3, but the way Bama recruits in state, I don't put a lot of stock in it. They're really weird about recruiting in state, and they've missed too much for me to.
It almost feels like they're above it. They're like, oh, why go in state when you can go national? I'm like, we're not in North Dakota. Like, it's like that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, Alabama is one of the top 10 states in the country for high school football in any given year, usually top 6. So
I mean, it's better than normal this year. This year, it's insane.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Plus, now he's part of it. So anyway,
yeah, sure.
If he wants to come, I don't know how you could say no. That's the thing. Like, it might be first guy to the show. You know, there's only
which
one.
Is probably a tactic, right? I mean I like all of them. They all seem decent.
That way you take the pressure off yourself.
Yeah. Get on the boat and we'll worry about everything else later. There's a few guys coming this weekend. We already mentioned one of them, but they're committed to other schools. And I like both of them a lot. Could we see a flip in the future? That's next, right here on Locked On Auburn. Today's show brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time's the best place to buy tickets. It doesn't matter if it's for football, for basketball, any sport you can think of. It also could be a concert, theater, comedy show. Doesn't matter what it is, as long as you're buying tickets for it. Game Time has you covered, and Game Time makes it even easier to create those unforgettable moments with their new feature, Game Time Picks. It filters out the fluff and shows you only the best deals on great seats so you can focus on what matters. Just being there. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege, all one word, LOCKEDONCollege, for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time. Final few minutes on today's edition of Locked on Auburn. Once again, thank you so much for making Locked on Auburn your first listen every single day. Brian Smith, recruiting expert here. Auburn's got a few guys that are committed elsewhere. We touched on Zion Elee, committed to Maryland. I just don't believe he's going to end up at Maryland. Could be wrong. Maybe Maryland's got it going more so on the NIL front than I realize. But you look at other commits or guys who are committed elsewhere. The other big one is Xavier Tiller, the tight end.
Yeah, A&M.
Yeah, from Langston Hughes, committed to Texas A&M.
Not buying it.
You're not buying it. Why are you not buying it?
A&M doesn't recruit Georgia well. Why would they? It's in East Texas. It's in the middle of nowhere. So he's a kid that lived 15 minutes from Atlanta.
Could that change with Elko? I mean, I assume Elko had to recruit Georgia when he was at Duke. Could that change at all?
There might be a connection there, but it's just the locale. And it's nothing against A&M, but it's literally just in the middle of nowhere. If the school wasn't there, there would be nothing but tumbleweeds. It's a very odd location for a college, to be honest. So East Texas, middle of nowhere. It's just, seriously, there wouldn't be anything else there.
No, I've heard from Auburn folks that have gone to watch Auburn play at College Station. It's like you're driving, and then boop, there it is. It's like nothing, College Station. So, but Xavier Tiller, I mean, there was Auburn chatter with him last summer around Big Cat Weekend. I mean, this is a guy who's been tied to Auburn for a hot minute. And the fact that he's here this weekend, I don't think is a bad thing for the Tigers.
No, he's a very unusual player because he could play 2 or 3 spots and do it well. He just happens to be a flex tight end in terms of where he's ranked, but he could be a stand-up pass rusher as an outside linebacker. He put his hand in the dirt.
6'5", 205. I mean, you could do a lot with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He's a great kid, very easygoing guy. So everybody in the country has offered him. He had a good visit there. He committed to A&M. It's probably more emotional if I was to guess. But again, how many kids from Georgia go to A&M if they're truly coveted by the traditional programs that are closer to home? All the Florida schools, the Georgia schools, Alabama schools, Tennessee, I don't think he'll end up at A&M. I'm not saying it's Auburn, but he's there again this weekend, and they've been, like you said, attached to him before. Auburn is probably as good, if not a better bet than A&M at the end.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on Elee? So you say you're not buying Tiller where he's committed to. Are you buying where Elee is committed to right now, Maryland?
Let's just say their NIL offer to him is substantial. Very substantial.
I mean, is it something where an SEC team couldn't reach it though?
No, it's not. It's just the question with these kind of things is how much of it is up front, because a lot of these kids are looking to secure something in case they get hurt, which I get.
Totally.
And certain schools won't do it. So I was told a very large number, and, I don't know if Maryland will ever be great at football because they stink at keeping kids home. They always have. They suck at it. But they've not done a good job of hiring coaches. Name 3 coaches that have been at Maryland. Nobody cares.
I don't want to. Yeah.
Yeah, it's because they suck. So maybe he's going to turn the page on that. But, Penn State, Southern Cal, Oregon, Auburn.
Penn State and Oregon seem to be the places where he's visited the most outside of Maryland. First visit to Auburn, I believe, is my understanding of this. So we'll see. We'll see if that first impression, I mean, it can go a long way. We've seen it happen before.
But he's the kind of guy that comes in and plays no matter where he goes. He's a very rare player. And another great kid, too. A to B, honest, well-spoken, kind of guy you want repping your program. So I don't know what the deal is with Baltimore, but Auburn seems to like that city for its football recruiting needs here.
Hey, DJ Durkin. I think that's what it comes down to. Yeah. Last guy I'll ask you about, CD Morgan, Tadarian Morgan, from Alexander City, Ben Russell, 6'5", 200+ pound wide receiver, expected to be here this weekend. You're seeing more and more crystal balls and predictions go in Auburn's favor for him. Have you heard anything to oppose that?
No, I've talked to him numerous times, and he's a kid that Florida or Ohio State or somebody like that intrigues him, but Auburn's 50-ish minutes away from his house.
Sure.
I mean,
maybe less.
I drive up to his to his high school to watch practice and just, it's just a quick jaunt, and I live in Auburn too. So yeah, that's going to be hard to beat Auburn, in my opinion. And he would be the guy that would replace Cam essentially, because Cam's junior year, he'd be a freshman, and then, Cam's never going to see it down of his senior year. We all know that. And he would be the guy.
Something would have to go very wrong for that to happen.
Yeah. Morgan would be your boundary receiver. He floats between 205 and 210, and he's yoked. He looks like he's 20-some years old, shoulder down.
Yeah.
You wouldn't know any difference. You didn't look at him in the face where he looks young. So, he's a special player.
Yeah. So huge junior day this weekend for Auburn. So be sure you're subscribed, and also follow Brian to make sure you're up to date with everything going on. Brian, how can people check out everything you've got going on?
FB Scout _Florida. And I know a lot of people probably don't care about Florida State, but I do the Locked On Florida State podcast. Yeah. So that's the connection there. So
Yep. Locked on Seminoles. Be sure to give them some love for sure. Yep. Please like the video. Please subscribe. We'll see you next time. This has been Locked On Auburn.